What is up, everyone? Crunchy Frog here. And ever since COD began dominating the gaming landscape back in the late 2000s, rival video game publishers have tried their hands at creating what is called the next COD killer. Developers have kind of sought to create an arcade first person shooter that not only rivals the juggernaut that is COD, but possibly surpasses it. This is especially the case in the last few years as public reception of the COD franchise has kind of worsened and players have began to grow tired of Activision's greedy, unchecked business practices with the series. So when XDefiant was unveiled a few years ago, many started to put their faith in the game to become that next COD killer. With ex-COD lead Mark Rubin at the helm, the game seemed poised to possibly excel in all of the areas where COD had seemingly started to slip. From the get-go, a lack of skill-based matchmaking was touted and marketed for the game, and the online shooter community completely ate it up. COD's matchmaking algorithm was just growing more and more aggressive and punishing, and players were seeking a refuge in a game that they could just relax and enjoy again. The free-to-play element also meant that the barrier of entry was non-existent, which meant the player base shouldn't be an issue. And if you're going to topple COD, you need a pretty massive player base and, be able to get anybody in the door. And to be honest, the devs seemed poised to seemingly right all of COD's wrongs and listen to the community and kind of do the things that Activision really refused to, and finally provide the competition that the industry giant had lacked for so long. However, during seemingly the height of the whole XDefiant hype train, the game was delayed several times, and some people started to believe that it would never actually see the light of day. However, finally, after several months of delays and public and private testing sessions, etc., XDefiant finally launched a couple days ago on May 21st, 2024. Now, I've put about 5 hours into the game in the last 2 days, so today I'll just give my honest thoughts and feedbacks in a kind of first impression style video as opposed to a full in-depth, review that I do sometimes on this channel. And I'll also discuss towards the end if I believe that this game truly will be the COD killer, since I know that's kind of on everyone's mind. That's one of the big talking points around this game. And just so you know, the gameplay in the background is not going to be great skill wise or anything like that. I'll get to that. I'm still learning. This is actually my first person shooter online game on a PC in over 10 or 11 years. I've not played since early high school, or late high school rather, back whenever I used to play like COD 4 and Modern Warfare 2 on my parents' PC back when I lived at home before I even went to college. So I am still adjusting to it. I've been playing on console, Call of Duty on console for several years since. So I apologize, I'm not going to sugarcoat anything. They're fairly decent, around positive or even gameplay. I'm not going to give you anything too bad, but just don't pick me apart in the comments section for lack of a 28-2 game or anything like that. I promise I am getting better. And so with that all out of the way, if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like as it helps other people find the channel in this video. And if you would like to see more videos like this, including gameplay reviews, gaming commentaries, and discussions, make sure to hit that subscribe button to join the family. And as always, if you would like to support this channel monetarily, make sure to hit the join button below for some cool exclusive perks while also helping me out as well. So now with that all out of the way, I want to get into, as always with these kind of reviews or discussions, I want to get into the positives, right? We want to start this out on a good front, on the right foot here. So the first one, and the absolute elephant in the room, the massive drawing point to this game, there is no skill-based matchmaking. Let me repeat that. No skill-based matchmaking algorithm whatsoever in casual matches. So let that just sink into your brain. I know if any of you are like me and have played COD for the last, X number of years, this is just mind-boggling and inconceivable. But that is one of the main selling points of this game, and man, is it amazing. And to kind of do a caveat to that, there is obviously skill-based matchmaking in the ranked playlist where it belongs. Right? To be fair, you can't have a ranked playlist without some of that skill-based matchmaking putting you with the right people. And there is a kind of welcome playlist that's mainly for new players or just people starting the game in general. And that does have skill-based matchmaking. I've heard some people say it's lighter skill-based matchmaking than ranked, but still in there in some capacity. obviously to give new players, so they don't get completely dumped on, and we've talked about in previous videos on my channel about skill-based matchmaking. Those are the instances where skill-based matchmaking actually makes sense and should be utilized. So not only did they take it out of casual play, they still kept it in instances where it makes sense. So they won on two different fronts there. They didn't completely yoink it, even when it made sense. They took it out where it wasn't needed and kept it where it was needed. And I think that just overall gives a better experience for everyone. And I have to say, I really enjoy it. I mean, this is just such a massive talking point. This could be talked about for 30 minutes in and of itself. So I'm going to try to keep it brief. But it's helped my enjoyment of the game already. And you look anywhere on social media and everyone's saying the same thing, right? My buddy was even saying tonight as he was playing, we were playing together, and he said he was able to have his foot up and relax and lean back in his chair. He wasn't facing forward, sweating, glaring at the screen like he has to do when we play COD. And obviously, for someone like me, this, not great at PC shooters just yet. I'm still knocking the rust off after 10 years, like I was talking about before. Obviously, I'm not stomping anyone. I'm not pub stomping yet, so, whatever. But for those of you that have been playing and are actually good at the game already, I mean, they're just loving it. And like I said, even as me, someone who's just kind of fighting to get even or positive as I work to shake off the rust, it's still such a better experience. Because I know if I do have a good game, I'm not going to be punished the next game, right? And I can build off of stuff. As I slowly get better and my accuracy with the mouse gets back to what it was 10 years ago, my KDR is slowly raising, right? I feel like I'm slowly getting better at the game the more matches I play, instead of knowing that the moment I do anything well or the moment I have a breakthrough, I'm just going to be punished and knocked back down a peg. There's almost a light at the end of the tunnel, right? There's something to work to. It's not punishing. It's not killing your kind of motivation or want to play the game, because that there's something to work for and there's something to strive for and to try to attain, and it feels really great. Now, does that mean sometimes I've been absolutely shit on? Yes, but that's how it goes, right? Eventually, as I get better, I learn the maps, I get a gun I really like. Again, my accuracy gets better because it's kind of dog shit right now with the mouse. As that gets better, I'm going to be that one having fun and getting lots of kills every match, and I'm going to enjoy it, and it's going to be much more consistent. And like I said, I don't want to rant on this too long. I already have an hour-long video discussing why skill-based matchmaking is horrific. So I'm not going to go into it here, but just suffice to say, it has already bought and sold the game for me. If everything else in the game was terrible, I'd still probably be playing this game right now for no skill-based matchmaking, in general. So take that as you will. The next great thing, obviously, like we talked about before, it's free to play. So you lose nothing by trying it. I didn't have to throw $70 down on a table. I didn't have to be subscribed to any specific gaming service to get it. It was just there. I logged on, downloaded the game, and it's done. Obviously, there are monetization efforts, and I haven't really broken those down too much to put them in either the pros or the cons category. But suffice to say, it's a great barrier of entry, and hopefully that means that a lot of people get to try this game and really enjoy it. Next up, I do have to say that the movement and guns feel smooth for the most part, right? They feel refined. It kind of gives vibes of early Call of Duty. There's not quite the same inertia and heaviness that we get in the recent CODs. And while I know that's more realistic and feels a little more punchy and does have its pros here and there, this very much so feels more like a classic COD and a little more, arcadey, as opposed to a little more simulation with, like I said, more physics-based inertia on the guns and stuff like that. And it really feels good. The challenge unlock system is also very fun and rewarding. A lot of the challenges to get new guns or to get XP for the dailies or whatever, they're all very much so just get it as you play it challenges, right? There's nothing crazy. Like, I know COD's whole camo grind, there was a lot of things that you had to completely change how you were playing oftentimes for the worst, in order to get these challenges. But a lot of these are nice, oh, get a long shot or get a headshot or something that will just randomly happen. So after a few matches, you'll get the weapon that you're working for. Some of them are just straight up damage. Get 4,000 damage with this weapon class or 10,000 damage, and it's just a matter of, hey, play the game. Eventually you'll get these items, and obviously there's ways you can maybe do it more effectively, right? You could plan for long shots like you do in COD, for the ACR and stuff like that, but by and large it just feels like, hey, play the game as you normally would, and eventually you'll unlock some new weapons to use. And then there's obviously the battle pass unlocks as well. But I just found the system fun, and they even lock some of the operators and skins and stuff behind it. So it constantly feels like you have something to work towards, and none of it feels like you have to just completely tear down your entire gameplay strategy just to be able to get a challenge. And I really like it, and I hope they stay that way going forward. Next up, and to kind of tie into this, there is a new faction, as opposed to the ones that you get when you first start playing the game. And I think there is a paywall to get it earlier. You could spend credits or, whatever, with modern day monetization practices. But you also just get it after 800,000 XP, I think, something like that, and you just get the new faction. So everything feels attainable, feels like you can earn it. Obviously, the battle pass skins, stuff like that, is a different story, but it's kind of an industry-wide thing at this point. But yeah, everything just kind of feels attainable, and there's lots of fun challenges to kind of keep you playing and keep you engaged. I do gotta say that I love the faction system, and kind of Ubisoft using this as almost a Super Smash Bros. Style mashup of all of their different IPs. Obviously, there's only a few in the game at launch, but I could foresee them, that they have not an unlimited pool, but virtually an unlimited pool of IPs and characters and universes and everything to bring into this game to really expand their lineup, and really get fans of a bunch of different series invested in this game that maybe otherwise wouldn't be. I've already told my friends, if they release anything Assassin's Creed, obviously they probably won't have them as operators, since they're medieval assassins, for the most part. But if they were to, put in skins in the game or a map that was based on something Assassin's Creed, like, my mind would just explode. And I'm super, as someone who actually does like Ubisoft games, not all of them. I know that's kind of a horrible thing to say on the internet. Someone's probably going to beat me up for it, but I do enjoy a fair amount of Ubisoft properties and games. And so this is a win-win for me, and I really can't wait to see what they do with that going forward. Another thing that kind of ties into the gameplay is the enemies are very clearly visible. In COD, a lot of times, in some other shooters, it's really hard to tell if an enemy's there, or if they are an enemy versus if they are your teammate, especially in games like this one where each side can have the same character models, right? It's not a faction-based shooter like maybe World at War was back in the day, with one side clearly different from the other in terms of the character models, right? You could technically be shooting a copy of yourself on the other team, but they're very clearly visible. They're very clearly marked. It makes for a much better experience. I've never mistaken my teammate for an enemy. I've never mistaken an enemy for my teammate. And, it makes vision and stuff like that very easy. So kudos to them for that, because a lot of shooter games get it wrong, especially COD sometimes. Next is, and this is going to sound weird because, we've been kind of conditioned that more content is always better, but I'm kind of glad that there's a stripped down attachment selection, right? The recent Call of Duty, there's been, the last couple of years, there's been like hundreds and hundreds of attachments, most of which either do identical things to the others or just plain unviable and unusable. The usage rate on some of the attachments in COD has to literally be 0%. I can't picture anyone using them. And this game kind of throws that out the window and just gets back to basics, right? All the attachments that you expect in a shooter game, the bare minimum that, kind of make the guns feel different and hit all of the major buffs and nerfs that you would expect in a multiplayer shooter without getting too crazy. And I really like to see that. It is kind of refreshing. Again, mostly because I'm coming off of playing Modern Warfare 2 and Modern Warfare 3 and stuff, where there's hundreds and hundreds of useless things that you unlock and never use. This seems very much more stripped down and, stuff that you'll actually use, or at least has a purpose. Now, next up, this is kind of the big one that really shapes my opinion of the game and my ultimate score, quote unquote, that I would give it, and that's the amount of potential that I see in this game. I think this is a very good base for a game, a very good foundation for something that will be great. Now, that's not saying it's not good now. Again, I'm having a great time with it. I'm enjoying my time with it. Many thousands or even millions of other people are as well. But I'm just saying that it establishes a nice firm base with proper care and support and updates as we go on. Could be a great game. Now, we talked about earlier, and we'll talk about later, will this be a COD killer, blah, blah, blah. And to do that, you have to have something solid, right? If this had launched completely broken, yes, I know there were server issues. Surprise, surprise, the game had server issues on launch day, people. Are you really surprised? Huh? But, apart from that, like, it's pretty solid. It has a great base, a great foundation. There's a lot of things that show potential, or, you say, oh, one or two more updates, and this is going to be, almost perfected, if it isn't perfected already in certain aspects. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what the future holds for this game, both in terms of the live service model and updates, as well as, them taking the community feedback, which they seem pretty apt to do. I thought I included it in my pros section earlier. I guess I didn't in my notes here, but they seem pretty, open to feedback, to fan feedback. So I'm hoping that they adjust some things and get it rolling. But I really do see a lot of potential in this game, and I do see myself playing this for quite some time, even if there are 100 other games right now that are demanding my attention. So I can't, play this as often as I'd like to. I definitely see this having some staying power in my game library. So with all the good stuff out of the way, obviously I would be remiss if I didn't tell you guys kind of the downsides, because this is not a perfect game yet. And part of my last point about how much potential this game has is because right now some of it just isn't quite there. You could tell it will be there or could be there someday, but it's not perfect. This is not a 10 out of 10 game by any means. And the first bullet point, just to get it out of the way, I mentioned earlier, I suck ass at this game. Okay, and when I say suck ass, I don't mean, obviously I'm still doing decent. I'm not going 1 in 10 every game or 1 in 20. I'm sure there's a lot of people that are like, what do you mean? You're better than I am. But I just, as compared to kind of my personal standards and my history with COD and everything, I suck. This is my first PC game for shooters in, like I said, 10 years, maybe 9 years. And my accuracy with the mouse and my, everything, my hand-eye coordination and dexterity just is not up to snuff yet. You could say, well, AJ, just use your controller, and you'd be right, but I really want to get back to being good with mouse and keyboard. I bought this gaming PC. I want to use it. And I really did used to love mouse and keyboard far more than I ever did with controllers for shooters. So I'm going to force myself through it. So that kind of shapes, obviously that shapes your outlook on the game, right? If you're just amazing at the game, you're going to think it's a little better than somebody like myself who's kind of fighting and clawing to stay even, or, having some bad games, stuff like that. So I try to temper my expectations and stuff around that, knowing that some of this stuff is just because I suck. How would I be rating the game differently if I was going 24-2 every map? But, regardless, I wanted to get that out of the way first before we really got into the kind of objective complaints or subjective complaints going forward. So next up on the actual list of complaints, it's kind of horrible spawns on some of the maps. I feel like every shooter gets this wrong. They hadn't figured it out after decades and decades, but overall the spawns weren't too bad, but some of the maps, it's horrible. That Wild West or like movie map where it's like set in like movie sets or something like that is possibly the worst offender. I've had some of the worst spawns on that map that I've had in any map in this game. So I don't know if it's just that map. Maybe they just need to tweak it on that map, or just the spawn engine in general. And then obviously some of the in the escort mode, I get what they're going for, right? They kind of want that spawn delay almost, but it gets a little exhausting. It turns into a walking simulator when you spawn, 3 miles away from the objective. You run for 2.5 minutes before you even so much as raise your sights to aim at somebody. That can get kind of annoying. But again, it isn't so bad that it took away from my enjoyment of the game. Most of the spawns are decent, but it definitely still has some work to do. Next up, and this is kind of probably my biggest complaint, is the netcode is garbage in this game. I'm not gonna lie to you. I have really good internet. I am technically playing on Wi-Fi, but I'm so close to my router and everything like that. It's right in the other room. I've never had issues. Great ping, everything like that. It's just I don't know if it's the servers. I don't know if they have a bad tick rate or what, but the netcode is garbage. And one of the biggest issues with this is the hit registration suffers immensely. Right, I've had some games where the hit reg was pretty clean, and in those matches I did pretty well. Right, I went positive, or I had a couple kill streaks here and there. But whenever you get into a match where the hit registration just ain't doing it, Chief, it is mind numbing at times. I mean, you sit there and wonder how you only hit the enemy one time when it just felt like you were right on them the whole time. And, with that brings kind of an inconsistency to the time to kill. Because some matches you just kind of erase people, and the next one it feels like you're firing on them for decades at a time, just because a lot of your bullets aren't registering, stuff like that, and it's very noticeable. That also brings about latency deaths, that we've seen in CODs in the past as well, but stuff like dying around corners because technically on their screen you're not around the corner, or what the hell, he one shot me, only to find out no, he's been firing at you for 10 minutes. Your client just registered that he was finally shooting at you, stuff like that. And again, it just brings this overall feeling of inconsistency that really hurts the game. And for an arcade kind of twitch shooter like this, like Call of Duty, you have to have really good netcode or else it stands out really bad. Now, if you had a game with a super high time to kill and it was much more strategic and stuff like that, obviously these little milliseconds or millimeters on your screen, it's not that big of a deal. But in a game like this, where every millisecond counts, it really turns the tide of a lot of gunfights and even entire matches. And again, it just feels inconsistent. Now, the worst part about this is I know that this was a problem during playtest. Matter of fact, I think that was one of the biggest reasons for all of the delays is they kind of redid the netcode and reworked a lot of these networking systems in the game, and it's still bad. I don't remember too much from my time playing it last year, if it's better or worse. I also played on Xbox versus PC, but it is not good now. And I know this is launch day or launch week, so there's a lot of people playing, so the servers are kind of stressed out right now. So maybe that will improve with time, and especially if they upgrade the servers at some point, or upgrade the netcode in various updates, it could get better. But as of right now, it leaves a lot to be desired, and I've seen a lot of other people complain about that as well. I've heard a lot of people say that it needs a higher tick rate and stuff like that to be more consistent and kind of refresh everything at a higher rate, thus tracking more stuff more quickly. But it's just oof. And I think the other thing that contributes to that is the hitboxes are not consistent with the player model. It seems to be like a standard hitbox for everyone. But that kind of means that some of the skins, some of the operators, or whatever you call them in this game, heroes, whatever, they're much more bulky, or they have extraneous equipment that kind of sticks out, and a lot of those don't have a hitbox. So you think like your eyes are telling you, I am shooting this guy, because you're just looking at his character model in general. However, the game is saying, no, you're not. You have to hit him, in the chest as opposed to his backpack, stuff like that. And it's hard to differentiate, especially during a gunfight. Oh, am I shooting his backpack? Am I shooting his weird little, helmet extension versus his actual player model? And that leads to some operators almost seeming OP just because of their skins, kind of being more difficult to hit and stuff like that. And I think again that plays in with a horrible netcode and a horrible hit registration, just to make the game feel super inconsistent. It's fun, but man, could it be a lot better with a lot more consistent netcode and server side refresh stuff like that. With that all of the way, the kind of next thing that I'm not a huge fan of, and I want to preface this by saying this is my entire preference. Somebody could see this exact same system and say this is why they love the game. So please do not take this as an objective knock against the game. But I just am not a huge, fan of hero abilities. This kind of harkens back to like the Black Ops 3 type era of Call of Duty. Nothing's too crazy or over the top. It's not like Overwatch or anything like that. But there are a lot of abilities that are kind of annoying, especially the barrier abilities. I'm sorry, those just piss me off every time without fail there. And some of the healing abilities, causes that TTK to be even more inconsistent because they're healing in the middle of a gunfight, but you don't know they healed. Stuff like that. But yeah, this is mostly just personal preference. Obviously, probably saying to yourself, okay, well, if you don't like hero abilities in a shooter like this, why are you even playing XDefiant? And you're right. I mean, it's not so integral to the game that it ruins it for me by any means. I'm still having fun. It's just something that I noted. And again, this is more my personal preference. So please don't take this as gospel and, as a knock on the game as a whole. The system they implemented is working well, probably as they intended. And it's just something that I'm not a huge fan of. Next up is, and this kind of possibly ties into the netcode again and hit registration, but I just don't get satisfying enough feedback from kills. One, if you remember from my reviews of Modern Warfare 2 and Modern Warfare 3 the last couple of years, kills in those games, for all that they failed and whatever, kills in those games feel very rewarding, very satisfying, and they just, they check those certain boxes in your brain that just make every kill feel good. And this is kind of paired with, again, the netcode issues, and it just kind of leads to floaty feeling gunplay. Now, I will say that this could partially be my switching to PC after years of being on a controller that has vibration and aim assist and different things like that. Some of this could just boil down to me needing to get good or adapt or whatever. But I think there is something deeper to it. And my friends kind of agree. Some people I've seen online also agree. So I know I'm not totally crazy. But yeah, they just need to tweak. I don't know if it's something with the hit markers. Like, I'm not sure the psychological science that goes into like a game like COD being so quote unquote satisfying when you get a kill, as opposed to something like this, which, just kind of leaves something to be desired. But I'm sure it's like a specific sound or certain feedback that you get that tells your brain you did something correct or that something was finalized by getting that kill, that this game just really doesn't seem to tick for me. And then obviously, again, the slightly more floaty gunplay also just, it doesn't feel as snappy and direct as I would like a shooter to be. And again, that might change as I get more used to mouse and keyboard. We'll see. But I did feel that it warranted mentioning in this video. Next up, and this is a super tiny little thing, but I had it written down in my notes as I played last night on launch day, and I just had to mention it. And that was that the stats menu is like not very robust. I'm not sure if they're going to update that and make it more in depth. But it was just kind of like, hey, here's your KDR, here's your win-loss ratio, and here's your average score. Have fun. But there wasn't any more drilled down statistics or is exactly how many kills you have versus deaths. Unless I missed something, and please let me know in the comment section if I'm just an idiot and I missed something in the menus, but I didn't see anything. It seems very bare bones. And again, this isn't huge, but we have knocked other games, including COD, for having lackluster, stats or barrack screens, right? So I felt fair to mention it here that it just kind of leaves something to be desired. Also, leaving something to be desired is the weapon camo or progression system. The only camos that I could discern that you get are the mastery camos, which I think are at levels like 50, 75, and 100, if I recall. Again, let me know in the comment section if I'm wrong. I don't have the game pulled up as I'm recording this, but you essentially get bronze, silver, and gold camo. And While I do like and one of my positives was that I like kind of that weapon mastery system, it just feels kind of lackluster because that's all you get. And to kind of pair with that, battle pass skins are gun specific. So in the first like tier of the battle pass, you get a skin for the M4. And it's kind of cool. It kind of looks like Red Tiger. I actually really like how it looks. The art team did a great job, but you can't equip it to anything else. So you can only equip it to the M4, which is a little weird. And so that just leads to that more, there's not much to customize your weapons until you have them, several, 50, 75, 100 levels later. And I don't know if this is something they'll be implementing later, but it's just something that, from COD and Battlefield and a couple other series that kind of add to that feeling of progression or growing in, kind of an attachment to your weapon, no pun intended, as you, rank it up or use it more, stuff like that, that you really just don't get with this game. And for how well this game does progression in other ways, it is kind of sad to see that weapons don't have that same treatment. And this kind of further ties into my next point that XP is just gained way too slowly. Now there are boosts I saw you can get, kind of like double XP tokens that COD has. I haven't used any yet. I think I unlocked one in the battle pass, so I'll probably use it tomorrow when I play again. But everything goes so slow. I mean, I'm like 5-ish hours in. I'm only like level 14 or 15, so I think overall level is kind of reasonable. But like, I have no guns over level 4. My battle pass is not even rank 4 yet, and it just kind of leads to very sluggish progression, right? I know COD has been kind of made fun of for being over the top ADHD. You get a medal or an achievement from every single action you take in the game. But there's a middle ground to be had, and this is kind of a little over the fence on the other side of things where it's not really hitting those dopamine receptors enough, right? It takes forever to level a gun up, and to get those guns to level 50 or 75 or 100, you're talking possible dozens of hours with the weapon. And I can kind of appreciate them wanting to make it an achievement that you get, but I would like maybe more checkpoints along the way, right? Maybe a camo you get at level 5 and level 10, level 25, or something like that, just to kind of add more progression and more skins to add to your weapons. Some of the Battle Pass skins look cool, but again, if you can only use them on that specific weapon, that's kind of a killjoy. Because what if you don't like that weapon at all? You're never going to use that skin, and then you're just kind of left high and dry. And that kind of sucks to know. And again, the XP is just way too slow. I don't know how long the preseason is, and I forget how many tiers the preseason battle pass is, but I'm at a severe risk of not coming anywhere near unlocking this fully. I feel like they kind of tuned the XP progression to those of us that will be playing 8 or 9 hours a day. You know who you are. But for most of us that have a job or have classes or anything like that, it's kind of a slog. And especially with, as they add more weapons, you're talking about adding several dozen hours of grinding to each of those new weapons as you unlock them or as they add them to the game to get the max level and all this other stuff. It's rough. And I hope that they tweak, XP thresholds and everything for leveling up maybe going forward ever so slightly. Again, it doesn't need to be take the COD route of, anytime you breathe, you get, 1,000 XP and some challenge done. But maybe a little more than you get right here for, at the very least, weapon progression and battle pass progression. And next up is kind of a somewhat disappointing maps and gun selection at launch. It's not terrible or like, anything I want to rip the game for unnecessarily, but it could have been a little better. Some of the maps I'm not a huge fan of either, and I've played some of them. I don't know how many there are, but it doesn't seem like there's that many. It's constantly seems like it's the same couple of maps that I keep playing over and over again. Some of them are pretty cool and visually kind of stunning in some aspects, but I would like to see maybe a couple more maps and definitely a couple more guns, I think, overall. But keep in mind, this is a live service game. Its entire, lifeblood is the fact that it will be receiving regular updates and seasonal content and all of that. So I'm assuming this will change, and that kind of harkens back to my point I made earlier. I see a great potential in this game. And this is it's something that, if I do a revisit review this time next year or something, this bullet point is probably going to be, thrown out entirely, right? We assumed that there would be several more maps added, several more guns added, stuff like that that really flesh it out. This is just the base, the kind of foundation they're laying. Get in there, enjoy the, 4 or 5 weapons in every category, or 3 or 4 weapons, and we'll give you some more later. Enjoy the couple of maps we give you at launch. We'll chuck some more at you later. Kind of a drip feed approach, but time will tell how well they do with that. And kind of see where they can compete with COD in terms of that release schedule. Next up, again, this isn't really the game's fault, but man, is it sweaty. I even without skill-based matchmaking, I haven't had too many players that didn't really look like they knew what they were doing. I feel like every match has, I think everyone's just joining up and trying their ass off, at the new game. So this will probably change in time, and especially change as I get better, and my perception of who is sweaty versus who sucks will change as I get better. But man, I don't remember old COD games being this sweaty, even without skill based. I will say again, it does feel a lot better than the skill based lobbies of COD. But man, there are still some people that they are taking this game way too seriously. And again, that's not a knock on the game. It's just something funny that I had to bring up because it does seem like some of these games people are really treating this like the Olympics. But hey, it is what it is. Like I said, by and large, you're much more apt to be able to just relax and play this game as opposed to the other matchmaking algorithms. So you take what you can get, right, and hope that the sweats maybe move on to ranked at some point. Next up, and again this is minor, but I just want to tack it on. Yesterday on launch day, the game did crash 2 or 3 times for me. Now it didn't crash tonight. So, maybe there was just something weird going on. The devs have since fixed in a hot fix or something like that. But I did have to mention it. I am playing on PC. I don't know, how glitchy it's been on console, but on PC it did crash 2 or 3 times for me yesterday. So with that all out of the way, you're probably wondering, is this the COD killer? Is COD going to be wiped off the map? Did XDefiant do it? Oh my goodness, is it our savior? and kind of unsurprisingly, I don't think so. And not because this game isn't good or not because this game won't be great someday, but I just think COD's too big to fail. Especially seeing, Twitter comments and kind of online discourse over the last 48 hours. I just think COD has too many fans, too many dedicated fans. It's a household name. It's kind of ingrained in our culture, let alone in gaming culture. It's one of those things that transcends gaming. It's just something that, everybody knows. You could probably ask an 80-year-old guy on the street what Call of Duty is, and he probably more than likely knows what it is, or at least has heard about it. So it's almost impossible for it to fail. However, I think, again, the great foundation, the lack of skill-based matchmaking, some other things that this game has done that Activision has been too scared or too arrogant to do, could make it a worthy alternative. And that's possibly all it needs to do. There exists the chance that this game does not need to be a COD killer, that no game will ever be a COD killer. However, what it needs to do is be a worthy alternative, right? Battlefield kind of fell on its face, whereas in past years that was a great alternative. Halo came out the gates falling on its face, has since kind of recovered, but that that was also supposed to be a fun alternative. And if this game just plays its cards right and just kind of puts its head down and does what it is trying to do and iterates on itself and updates, and the devs keep up with this game and stuff like that, and Ubisoft kind of throws it the funding and the development that it needs and kind of deserves, in my opinion, I think it'll be a worthy alternative, right? You won't hear about anyone saying, that they're never playing COD again because, XDefiant has fully engrossed their lives. Well, maybe some people will say that, but just I don't see this becoming a household name. I don't see people, packing in, to midnight releases, for the next update or the next XDefiant 2 or anything like they have for COD. I think COD is just such a cultural zeitgeist at this point that it can't fail. But I think what this game needs to do is kind of find its own lane, much more casual and fun experience than COD, stuff like that. Find its own niche and seek to run alongside COD, but only so far as in to kind of make COD a little scared, right? That's all it needs to do is create that competition in the space to kind of force Activision and the Call of Duty devs to kind of maybe second guess some of the things that they have done and some of their approaches, and check out this other game that is doing things right or doing things that they refuse to do, and kind of self-reflect, and oh, maybe the next game, maybe Black Ops 10, we'll try this out, or maybe in Modern Warfare 28 maybe we'll try what XDefiant's doing, maybe they're right. Stuff like that. And I think that that is truly what the potential of this game is. And that's not to say this game isn't fun. Again, my overall conclusion to this game is it's very fun. I recommend everyone go out and get it. And I'm being honest, it's free to play, so it's not going to cost you anything. But I think both games will benefit, right? Anytime you see competition in kind of these capitalistic spaces, it always is good for the consumer, right? More competition is better. You have three gas stations, across the road from one another. There starts to be a little bit of a price war. The consumer wins. Certain similar products come out like these, two similar shooter games. They kind of tend to have an arms race of sorts, and the consumer always wins. So to me, this is a net positive for all gamers, whether you're a COD fanboy, whether you absolutely hate COD and you you would like to beat up Bobby Kotick, or whatever it is that you harbor hate for COD. I think both sides win by this game doing well, and both sides win by this game kind of forcing COD to maybe stop resting on its laurels and actually start changing things that the community wants changed. And who knows, maybe the lack of skill-based matchmaking is a big enough shakeup to the community, and a big enough shakeup to COD's stature and market share and everything like that, that they actually walk back their statements and fall back on ping is king and stuff like that. So it really remains to be seen, but I am super excited to see how this affects the kind of the ecosystem at large. And finally, just to summarize everything, I know this video is kind of running longer than I'd like it to, but my final conclusion is, again, I highly recommend it. It's not perfect. It is not a perfect game. There's still a lot of stuff that kind of annoys me, or that I'd like to see changed, or that just could be done better. But I think overall it's still a fun game, and more importantly, it's a fun alternative. If you're burned out on COD, if you find yourself not wanting to boot up COD, like myself, get XDefiant. You lose nothing really by getting it. It's free to play on console and PC. There's no skill-based matchmaking, so you can have a little more casual time of it. While at the same time, if you want to get sweaty, if you want to crank that G Fuel up and and strap on the headset and go full tilt, there's still a ranked mode to do that in. So I think it's a fun game. I think definitely keep your ear to the space if you're not going to get it now. Definitely pay attention to see where this goes, what updates are pushed, what the first season looks like, what new content's being added, what changes the devs make, and everything like that, because I think this game truly could evolve into something great, and only time will tell. But yeah, that about wraps it up. Let me know if you guys have played it. Let me know in the comment section below your thoughts on it. If you disagree with anything I've said in the video, let me know kind of your takes on those points down below. And if you have enjoyed this video, and if you've stuck around for this long, make sure to leave that like. It greatly helps my channel, guys. I can't emphasize that enough. And if you'd like to see more content like this, please subscribe. We are trying to get our way up to 700 subscribers here shortly. And thanks so much, guys, for all your support on all these videos. It keeps me going. It keeps me pumping out these more in-depth videos going forward. So you guys will be seeing more XDefiant content on this channel, hopefully with better gameplay as I, shake off some of this rust. And yeah, until the next time, guys, you have a good one.